Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Hello to wherever you are in the world. We're back for the F1 show, and I'm joined, as always, by Charlie Tolhurst on the other end of the line. Charlie, we've got an awful lot to discuss in this packed show.
It is. It's been a few weeks since we were last live, but yes, we had the British Grand Prix at the weekend, the big event for Formula One at Silverstone.
And Charlie, may I just point out, I think this was the best British Grand Prix I've ever seen.
Wow, really interesting. That's strong words from you, Jack. I thought the race was great, fantastic though. It was a great race, what we needed this season, actually.
It was. So we're going to dissect. We start with what you want us to start with. We're going to dissect this incident. So I'll tell my view of it, then I'll get Charlie to tell his view of it. My view of it was, when I first saw this incident, I thought it was Lewis's fault. They were going wheel to wheel. They touched about 3 times in the opening half of that. They made contact at Abbey. They made slight contact at Brooklands. If I'm honest, I think on the old start finish straight, Max did push Lewis right up to the pit wall. Like, Lewis was almost touching the pit wall. It could have maybe affected his turn into the corner, but equally Lewis did miss the apex, and Max did leave him more than the car's width. And I don't know whether Lewis just got dirt on his tyres or he got understeer and obviously slid into Verstappen, which sent him spiralling into the barriers at high speed. I mean, the main thing is Max is okay out of this incident, but it's controversial. It's an accident that's been coming all season long, and it happened, didn't it, at Cops? Charlie Tolhurst, I ultimately put the blame on Lewis Hamilton on that incident.
Yes, Jack, I have to agree with you that I actually thought it was Hamilton's fault. And I'm actually just going to get up I'm just going to share my screen quickly because I just want to there's some pictures I've just found on the internet of the collision. If you can see here, this was going into turn 9 at Cops, and you can see basically the photographs of when Hamilton went for the move down the inside at Cops on Max Verstappen, and so you can see like Hamilton was there alongside, and then ultimately this basically led up to the crash, which
we keep that up for a minute, Charlie. But I think the difference between the stop go and the time penalty, if you look at the top left picture, Lewis Hamilton is significantly alongside Max Verstappen. As you can see there, he's significantly alongside, and I think that is the ultimate pinch point, Charlie, between a time penalty and a stop go.
It's interesting. I mean, when you just look at the pictures there, you think to yourself, that corner, it's one of the fastest of the championship. Cops is very, very fast. 180 miles per hour in qualifying, like 170, 160 in the race. I have to say, though, Jack, when I watched the reactions, I had to agree with Christian. And I know I'm not being rude here. I do think, though, it was Lewis's fault. I will say that. I think when you look at Hamilton's onboard, he should have. I mean, look, Verstappen was turning right. I didn't think Hamilton should have gone more into the corner. I don't think he looked like he was committed to take the corner. I mean, that is a very fast corner, Cops. It's very, very fast.
Charlie? I think Max expected Lewis to back out, and I think Lewis expected Max to back out. These are fierce racers. They won't back out.
Yeah.
And it was obvious, Charlie, the whole of that first lap, that if one of them didn't back out of it, eventually one of them would end it in the fence.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I watched the crash, particularly when Verstappen got ejected, when Verstappen had the contact and we went into the barriers, I must admit, I think I do actually. He released a very strong, powerful message on Instagram or Twitter the other day on his socials. I do agree with Max on that. On what he said about the incident.
I disagree.
Okay.
With the statement that Max put out, I agree Lewis shouldn't have been there, but there was an overtaking opportunity. So I think Lewis had the right to go for the move, and he kind of messed it up. I didn't agree with the bit at the end where he said it was disrespectful of Lewis to celebrate after the race. That's the bit I had the problem with, because I almost think if that was Max, would he have celebrated the victory? 100%. Absolutely. If that was at Zandvoort in front of all of his fans and Lewis had a big accident colliding with Max, Max would have 100% celebrated that victory. 100%.
Yeah.
So I don't think Max was in any kind of position, or Christian was, to say that Lewis shouldn't have celebrated like that.
I have to say though, Jack, that accident was a 51G accident. I think you got to look at the Bottas and Russell collision in Imola, and I have to say what was different with that one was that that one I would class as a racing incident, because with Russell he got on a wet part of the track and just lost control of the car. That one for me wasn't his fault because there was a wet part, a wet part.
Yeah, I agree, Charlie. But
the car went.
If you were, let's face it, Lewis wouldn't have known Max was in hospital at that moment in time. The team, Mercedes, wouldn't have told him that. Mercedes probably didn't even know that at that point. I think we found out on TV about halfway through the race, but I don't know whether I don't think Mercedes would have told Lewis about that, or I'd be very, very surprised if they did. But do you know what? As I said, we put the blame on Lewis. Should he have been there? And I think Lewis, Charlie, I don't think he'd be proud of that. I think if he had the opportunity, he'd have taken it again. He doesn't like being in controversy, does he?
No.
So he won't be proud of it, and he won't want it to happen again. But another thing, Charlie, that gets me is, had it have not been at Silverstone, had it have not been a full crowd, would he have gone for the move? Did Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton let the occasion and the emotion get the better of themselves?
I think they did. And I think as well, Jack, that would have, the move, for me, it was a move that I think was never on. Because it's one of those moves. I mean, he done it with Leclerc, actually, towards the end of the race.
I feel the move was on, Charlie. If he hadn't have got that oversteer, I think then they'd have gone wheel to wheel into Maggots and Beckett's, and who knows what would have happened at Maggots and Beckett's.
I think it's difficult. When I listened back to the radio messages, I think between Christian Horner and Toto Wolff, there was clearly two different sides of the argument. I mean, Toto Wolff said in a press conference that it takes two to tango. Christian Horner said it's unacceptable. It's the fastest corner in the championship. You had two completely different viewpoints. It's difficult though to agree with who's right on that one. Actually,
it is, isn't it, Charlie? And we say we let Mercedes let them let the situation get the better of themselves. Did Red Bull in the aftermath let their emotions get the better of themselves? I can understand why their emotions were running high, but Helmut Marko, Charlie, really came out of the blocks, didn't he?
He did. I think what he said about the Lewis getting a ban, that was a little bit overreacting. I think it was a bit extreme, but I think I understand he's a bit concerned. I mean, look, Max Verstappen suffered a horrible crash at the weekend. I'm so glad he's walked out of that without serious injury. If he was injured, I think I would have been a little bit more of critical of Lewis Hamilton.
100%, Charlie, and that is obviously the main thing, that Max is okay, and we wish him a speedy recovery. And we don't know whether we're going to see him in Hungary yet. We hope we do, but obviously he's got to pass all of the medical fitness checks. Because, Charlie, he did unfortunately suffer some concussion in Coventry Hospital, where he was sent to the CT scan. So he has had concussion since the accident, and it's obviously not a nice thing to have, but it isn't the worst injury. There was at one point they were saying suspected broken ribs and maybe neck injuries as well. So thankfully the hands device has done its job. If you actually look closely at the halo, Charlie, there's actually tyre marks on the halo from where
his tyre blew up. It was left
from where he hit the tyre barrier. So the halo's also done its job. pretty much nothing is left of that Red Bull. But obviously the main thing is Max is okay. But there was an interview of Christian Horner, Charlie, and he was also very disappointed that how Red Bull now got through 2 of their 3 power units for the whole season. And the cost cap as well. They are very tight, Charlie, for the rest of this season.
Yeah, you mentioned that in an interview with Ted Kravitz the other day. He said that it was struggling to get money into the team. They've obviously got very tight cost cap restrictions this year. But yeah, Perez has had new parts in, I think, for Silverstone. He obviously crashed out, he spun off in sprint, had new parts in. Verstappen's going to have loads of new parts for the next. I think he races at Hungary, but he's got loads of new parts whenever he races. It's going to be interesting.
What I was told, Charlie, by Christian Horner and Adrian Newey, that car is being scrapped and they will completely rebuild Max Verstappen's car from scratch.
Wow, I've never seen a Formula One team having to rebuild a car or rebuild a chassis. That is going to take a lot of work to do.
Well, obviously they have all the new car components all ready to go, but I was told that car can't unfortunately be used anymore. So there is going to be a brand new car that we will see for Hungary if Max passes the fit to race test, of course.
Yeah. I hope Max is back. I mean, the thing is, these two, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, these are the 2 most ferocious racing drivers on the grid. You saw them at Silverstone. You saw that none of them wanted to give a quarter. I mean, the wheel-to-wheel action was fantastic. They were so close to each other. But I just knew one moment that one of them was going to end up potentially in a massive accident.
And obviously, as we said, we hope Max is okay. But again, Charlie, it just shows the response from the marshals at Silverstone was outstanding, wasn't it? To get the flags out, to obviously the race was safety card at first, then it ran into a long red flag. The reason for that red flag, Charlie, was because Max Verstappen's car was indeed tangled in the tyre barriers, which also needed repairing. Can we just say, well done to Michael Massey as well, Charlie. He was at the thick of this incident. And I do have to say, since he's come in for Charlie Whiting, who sadly died a few years ago, he's been absolutely outstanding, hasn't he, at dealing with all these incidents. I think he kept such a cool head, didn't he, on Sunday? You know, he's got Toto in one ear blaring something at him. He's got Christian in the other blaring something at him. And when they even can't get hold of him, what do? They send emails to him, Charlie. So he's got Toto and Christian left, right, and centre, poor Michael. But yeah, I did think he dealt with that situation incredibly well, and he brought out the safety car, didn't he, pretty quickly.
He did. That is certainly the biggest incident of the season. It's the most dramatic moment of the season. And I tell you what, if I was in that position of Michael Massey at the weekend, I would have been having a lot of debate as to whether, or what the basically say, who's at fault, which team is right to lobby their case. This was certainly the biggest. I'm not joking. I think this has got to be one of the toughest decisions of Michael Massey's career, because this crash was with 2 big drivers.
It was, Charlie, but I think, Charlie, since round 1 at Bahrain, this crash has been coming. And this championship battle, this epic championship battle, this is one for the ages. This is a Senna versus Prost, a Nigel Mansell style championship, isn't it? And it's been simmering. It was simmering. And finally at Copse Corner, it simmered that little bit too much, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not joking, Jack. Max Verstappen is one of the most aggressive defenders in Formula One. Trust me. You see, I've watched his moves. He defends very late. He'll move over very late. Some people like Kimi Räikkönen say he'll move under braking more than once. He's a very aggressive driver. And I think Lewis knew that Max was really trying to defend his lead going into Copse.
But whatever, both drivers knew whoever was leading at the end of the first lap was probably going to win that Grand Prix.
Yeah, and you got to look at the pace of the Mercedes last weekend. It was running really rampant around Silverstone.
It was running Red Bull riot in qualifying, wasn't it? That Red Bull were you could see on Max Verstappen's face in the post-qualifying interviews on Friday night, he was visibly shocked, wasn't he, at how fast the Mercedes was.
Well, Hamilton, certainly. I mean, Bottas, I don't know about him, but he wasn't far off as well. But yeah, I mean, wow. Mercedes must have brought those upgrades to Silverstone and really have used them to their full potential.
Well, they went for straight line speed, didn't they? Which is understandable. A lot of straights, a lot of fast corners at Silverstone. But it did. They did struggle at corners like Brooklands, the Val chicane. That they were slower at. But on the straights, Charlie, that Mercedes was lightning fast.
It was, and I think with Silverstone, it's a circuit that Mercedes tried low downforce, and it kind of was interesting to see how that went on. I think because it's such a fast circuit, average speed-wise, with lots of corners. It's not like a Monza where you got straights. This is all corners, maggots, Beckett's, whatever. The loads of corners. Higher downforce tends to be what a lot of cars run at Silverstone, just to maximise the grip going onto the straights.
What let's move on, Charlie. So after the incident, we've had the red flag. We've gone to a second standing start, and Lewis has got a 10-second time penalty, whether you agree with it or not. But after he pitted, Charlie, it was a Lewis Hamilton masterclass to get back to the front, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the drive he done after that, wow, I could not describe it. It was fantastic. He was charging through the field. I mean, obviously, Valtteri Bottas had to let him through because it was team orders. But yeah, he done really well. And I mean, he passed Charles Leclerc at Cops, believe it or not. You could argue it's a similar move to Verstappen, but Leclerc went off the track.
It was where the action started, Charlie, and Cops' corner provided everything a corner wants, didn't it? Could it be the corner that has just turned this championship on its head?
Yeah, this was the biggest moment of the season, Jack, without a doubt. This is the biggest moment I've seen in a world championship in Formula One for quite a few years now. And I think I wouldn't argue that this move, with Verstappen's retirement, Hamilton's only a few points behind now going into Hungary?
I think it's 8 points going to Hungary.
Points. Wow, that's interesting. It's going to be so... This move is a big one.
I'll call it now, Charlie. This is going to Abu Dhabi. This is going to go right to the wire.
I think it could. This could be last race. Whoever wins a championship wins it.
It's a... you know what it reminds me? I said it earlier. It reminds me of Senna versus Prost, 89. That championship. That is what it reminds me of. And it's a once in a half a century season, isn't it? Where you just got that fierce battle, but no drivers given an edge. There's just single. You can count the amount of points that separate both drivers on your hands. You know, it really is one to treasure, isn't it? This opening half of the Formula One season has been outstanding. Yeah,
well, obviously 89 Senna and Prost collided, and then Prost went out and won the world championship because Senna got disqualified in Suzuka. So yeah, this is going to, I think this world championship this year is going to be one of the closest we're going to be seeing for many years to come.
Right, let's move on from the controversy at the front. Fernando Alonso, Charlie, had a fantastic weekend, and the start he got in the sprint was quite extraordinary, wasn't it? He overtook about 5 cars in the opening 3 corners.
Oh, wow. I watched the onboard Jack from his Alpine. He made an absolutely stunning getaway. I mean, I've never seen... That's one of Alonso's best starts since the 2013 Spanish Grand Prix. I watched that start. It was fantastic. He positioned his car in the right place, went for the outside, and he nearly made contact. He was having to fight understeer, but he made a massive start. And I think the soft tyres really helped him in that sprint race at the start, though, of the race.
100% agree. Also, moving away from Silverstone now, well, still at Silverstone. What did you think of the sprint? What did you think of it?
I liked it. I think it really spiced up the racing, actually.
It was an
interesting test.
It was an interesting test. I thought it worked at Silverstone. However, if we went to Monaco, I don't think sprint.
No, I wouldn't. The thing is, though, I mean, Where are they using this next? Probably Monza. I think I've been hearing they're going to use it.
Monza or Spa.
If it's Monza, they're using it at.
I think it's Monza and then Brazil if we ever get to Brazil.
Yeah. I think the sprint. It was interesting. I think what was different with the sprint, Jack, was that with this race there was no pit stop, so drivers had to really be careful with the tyres and manage them properly.
I think we just lost Charlie for a bit. We didn't catch
sorry,
the end of that, Charlie.
Apologies. My internet cut out there.
What did you say at the end? We didn't quite catch you.
I just said apologies, my internet went. What I said was that I think it's going to be interesting, like somewhere like Monza with the tyres. Literally, like there's no pit stops. You've got to basically try and predict when your tyres are going to fall off and race as hard as you can.
Yeah, I mean, you can pit if you like, but 17 laps, you wouldn't have enough time to claw that back, considering everyone else was on brand new sets. What I did like, Charlie, is the free range of tyres for the start of the race. I think that should be kept, sprint or not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like in Q2, you start the fastest lap you're doing that, you start the race on your tyres you qualified on. I mean, why not use the free tyre choice? It spices the action up, I think. It
does, because it means the teams can, like, sometimes to get to Q2, to get through to Q3, sorry, some of the smaller teams have to use the softs.
Yeah.
Like Williams, where actually, like, you sure I'm going off, Charlie?
Sorry, I've got someone calling me. Apologies, I'm going to have to... Sorry, I've never had that before on a live show. I've got someone trying to call me.
Don't worry, Charlie.
Apologies there. In terms of like, I think the softs, I think for Williams, I think it's just it gives these small teams a hard time having to basically get soft tyre to get through, and then they get to the race and then they're not on the best tyre. It's just, I think the free tyre choice is really going to help the racing and spice things up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I do think we should keep that. But whether it be brought in for Hungary, we don't know. But obviously, going into Hungary, Charlie, Silverstone was the last weekend that we'll be seeing sub 2 second pit stops, unfortunately, because the new regulation to slow down pit stops comes in from the Hungarian Grand Prix, which means pit stops have to be at least 4 to 5 seconds now.
Well, you could tell Christian Horner's face when that announcement came up. After Red Bull saying he's one of the fastest pit stops. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this. Is it going to ruin the racing? Is it going to make the pit stops more interesting? I mean, I don't know what to say about this.
I don't know whether it will ruin racing so much, Charlie, but I don't really see the need for this move, if I'm honest.
I agree, actually. I think the thing is, Red Bull do these pit stops, Jack. Sometimes they do it under 2 seconds. They're very quick. I mean, wait 4 seconds.
I see why the FIA's done it, to make sure the tyres are securely on, but they have sensors on the wheel guns, don't they, to tell them that the tyres are on. I don't get what more they can do in 3 seconds if the tyre isn't on properly. They won't know. If the wheel gun's not triggered it, they won't know until the driver gets out on the track and goes for it and his tyre falls off, will they? So
yeah, I mean, it's just a bit crazy, to be honest. I can't see. I don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, it's just, they'll just have to see in Hungary.
I think we're going for more IndyCar style pit stop. That's not more style. IndyCar, quite style, aren't they? IndyCar pit stops.
Yeah, mind you, IndyCar have the refueling, so Formula One wouldn't have that.
No, they wouldn't have that because we're not allowed to refuel in the pit lane under pit lane regulations. But yeah, I struggled to see it. And finally, Charlie, for the final 5 minutes, we're going to have an F1 2021 game review. Have you had a chance to trial out the new game yet, Charlie? Charlie, what did you think?
Yes, Jack, I was on it earlier actually today. I haven't had a go at the career mode yet, but I've had a go on a couple of tracks. It's really good, honestly. What I like about the game is the new graphics. Like, you know,
the graphics are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, I was racing like on board. Like, I was racing, I think, with Lando Norris the other day in a McLaren, and I tried the Mercedes out around, I think, Austria and Bahrain, and like when you change gear, it's got the blue halo graphics on it, and I'm like, I've seen that on the Halo, and it's really cool. It's like it's got this like blue LED bar at the bottom, reminds you when to change gear, downshift, upshift. It's really good, actually.
Yeah, see, I have it on automatic. I only have it on manual at the start, and then I switch it to automatic. But one thing I was slightly disappointed, Charlie, is that we don't have the new tracks on there, even Saudi Arabia.
Yes, I found that a bit strange. I think I've spoken to someone. I believe they're coming as part of a Series 2 update.
I think they are, Charlie. That's what I've heard. And China is at the end of the season. I don't know why. On career mode, China's at the end of the season. I have no idea why. But one of the other things I did like, Charlie, is the way the car handles. So spinning is a lot more realistic. And if you're going to spin, the tires lock. It looks, and when you crash, if you ever crash, all the bits fall off the car. It is a lot more like real life in terms of that scenario. And overall, I did like it. As you said, the new tracks are coming as part of the Series 2 upgrade, which is coming in a couple of months' time, I believe. So we'll be looking out for them. And if you have already bought the game, you will get a free upgrade on the same disc, as everyone will do. If you buy a new disc, it will already include, like, after the date's released. We're not quite sure when that is yet. You will buy the disc, and it will have the Series 2 included in it. But if you already have a disc, like me and Charlie, you will get an update notification when Series 2 comes out. You just press update, and it should load all of the new track data onto that disc. So there's no reason, Charlie, to be spending more money on new discs when the Series 2 version comes out.
Yeah, I think another thing that I was missing from the game is the classic F1 cars. I was trying to look through
the
menus, and I haven't
they're
seen
not
them.
on there. They're not on there.
That's a shame.
I did have a try on the F2 Championship, Charlie, to see how their cars handled, and it's very realistic. The fire comes out the back, it is, and the starts are so much smoother this year, I feel, as well. Last year we got so much wheel spin all the time at the start, and the AI seem a lot more racier this year.
They do. I mean, I was racing earlier on, and I was honestly, I was racing with Lewis Hamilton on the game, and I went for an alternate strategy. Instead of going for soft tyres, I went for hard tyres, and I tried to defend like crazy. And Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen were behind me, and they were literally like so racing, and they got past me in the end because my tyres fell off.
I tell you what, Charlie. I was racing Max Verstappen in my career mode at Bahrain, and we were wheel to wheel from turn 3 all the way down to turn 8.
Wow.
Max Verstappen really wasn't giving me any inches at all.
I mean, yeah, I tell you what, though. I mean, I'm not joking. I think the AI have improved. They have certainly got a lot racier. I don't know what difficulty you have it on. It's probably an expert. That's one I have it on. But it's really like they're great. The wheel-to-wheel action is really good. I literally was trying to hold on for dear life leading whilst my tyres were not as fresh as the softs, and they literally were like, it was amazing racing at Austria with an alternate strategy. It
was, and the circuits, the tarmac, the cars seem a lot more grippier as well. I remember last year they were sliding all over the place every time you went round. Like Cops, for example, at Silverstone, you always ran wide there.
Yeah,
but this time they seem to stay stuck to the track like glue. As I said, if you do run out wide, they do spin.
They do. I was at Zandvoort the other day, went on the curb, boom! The curb literally is, the curbs in this game are quite sharp. If you just get over the curb too much, boom! The back end goes. I
was at Spain, Charlie, and I spun at turn 2. Had quite a big spin at turn 2, all because I ever so slightly touched the curb, and it just went like that.
It's that.
And I done a full 360.
Wow.
Right, despite all the fun, Charlie, it's time to say goodbye. There won't be the F1 show for a couple of weeks, but we will be back in the summer break. It's going to be a long 4 weeks, that summer break, so we're going to keep you posted with all of the latest news in F1. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.